The FDIC just proposed new rules for stablecoin issuers under the Genius Act framework, and most XRP holders have absolutely no idea what this means for their position. This is not another regulatory headline that disappears in 48 hours. The Genius Act is already signed into law, and these rules determine exactly how compliant stablecoins like RLUSD operate inside the United States banking system. If you are holding 1000 XRP and you do not understand how stablecoin regulation directly drives demand through XRP settlement rails, you could be sitting on a position that quietly becomes worth multiples of its current value without understanding why. By the end of this video, I will show you the exact math on how FDIC stablecoin rules translate into XRP price scenarios for your 1000 token position. How long have you been holding XRP? Drop the year you first bought in the comments below. I want to see how many of us have been through the full journey together. Let me give you context on why this matters more than anything else happening in crypto right now. The Genius Act was signed into law in July 2025. It was the first federal digital asset legislation in United States history, but signing a law is only step one. The actual rules that determine how stablecoins are regulated come from agencies like the FDIC, the OCC, and the Federal Reserve. Without those rules, the law is a framework with no operational teeth. That changed this week. The FDIC just released proposed guidance on how federally insured institutions can issue, hold, and transact stablecoins under the Genius Act. This is the regulatory plumbing that tells banks exactly what they need to do to operate stablecoin infrastructure legally. And here is the detail almost nobody is covering. The guidance specifically addresses reserve requirements, audit standards, and interoperability protocols for compliant stablecoins. Now think about what Ripple has built. RLUSD has a market capitalization of approximately $1.56 billion. It is the third largest US regulated stablecoin, and unlike most stablecoins in the market, RLUSD was designed from day one to be fully compliant with federal banking regulations. While competitors scramble to retrofit their products for compliance, RLUSD is already there. Here is what this means for you if you are holding XRP right now. Every compliant stablecoin transaction that flows through the US banking system has the potential to use XRP as the bridge settlement layer. More compliant stablecoins means more settlement volume. More settlement volume means more XRP demand. Let me walk you through exactly how this works, because the connection between stablecoin rules and XRP price is something that almost no other creator is explaining properly. When a bank wants to send a cross-border payment using stablecoins under the new FDIC framework, it needs a settlement mechanism. The stablecoin itself is the medium of exchange, but the bridge between different currencies and different banking systems requires a settlement layer. That is where XRP comes in. Ripple built XRP to function as the universal bridge currency that connects fiat to fiat through stablecoin rails. RLUSD on one side, another compliant stablecoin or fiat currency on the other, and XRP settles the gap in 3 to 4 seconds. Ask yourself this: if the FDIC just made it legal and clear for every federally insured bank in America to use compliant stablecoins, how many banks do you think will start using this infrastructure in the next 12 months? The answer is not zero, and every single one of those transactions needs a bridge. Here is what this means for you as a holder. The FDIC guidance creates a clear regulatory highway for stablecoin adoption. More banks adopting stablecoins means more transaction volume. More transaction volume flowing through compliant rails means more demand for XRP as the settlement bridge. This is not theoretical. This is infrastructure being codified into federal regulation right now. Now let me show you the numbers, and this is where it gets genuinely compelling. There are approximately 4,700 FDIC-insured banks and savings institutions in the United States. Currently, cross-border payment volume through the US banking system exceeds $600 billion per month. That is $7.2 trillion per year in cross-border flows, just from American institutions. But wait, that is only the United States. The Genius Act framework serves as a template that other jurisdictions are already studying closely. The European Union, Singapore, Japan, and the United Kingdom have all signaled they are developing similar stablecoin regulatory frameworks. When you add global adoption of compliant stablecoin rails, the total addressable market for bridge settlement expands into the tens of trillions annually. Here is what this means. If you are holding 1000 XRP, let me run 3 scenarios based on how much stablecoin volume flows through XRP bridge settlement. Conservative scenario, XRP captures 0.5% of US cross-border stablecoin volume once FDIC rules finalize. That is approximately $3 billion per month in settlement throughput. Based on monetary velocity calculations and the liquidity requirements for that volume, the implied XRP network value reaches approximately $300 billion. That puts XRP at roughly $5.26 per token. Your 1000 XRP position goes from approximately $2,000 today to $5,260, a 2.5x return from where we sit right now. If this data surprised you, hit that like button right now, because the next scenario changes the math dramatically. Moderate scenario. XRP captures 2% of combined US and early adopter international stablecoin volume once the FDIC framework gets replicated by 3 to 4 major jurisdictions. That is approximately $40 billion per month in settlement throughput. The implied network value climbs to approximately $1.2 trillion, XRP price at roughly $21 per token. Your 1000 XRP goes from $2,000 to $21,000. That is a 10x return from current prices. Bullish scenario. Global stablecoin rails mature over the next 2 to 3 years, and XRP captures 5% of worldwide compliant stablecoin settlement. At current cross-border volumes of approximately $150 trillion annually, 5% is $7.5 trillion in settlement per year. The implied network value based on liquidity requirements pushes XRP toward a $50 to $60 price range. Your 1000 XRP position crosses $50,000 to $60,000. When this move happens, you want to already be on an exchange. WEEX, no KYC, $30,000 bonus. Link is in the description. Now here is the institutional confirmation that makes this thesis even stronger, and it is something that should make every holder pay close attention. Goldman Sachs just disclosed $154 million in XRP-related holdings through their latest 13F filing. 7 US-listed spot XRP ETFs now hold combined assets under management between $1.4 and $1.6 billion. Ripple completed their $1.25 billion acquisition of Hidden Road, giving them a prime brokerage handling over $3 trillion in annual volume. Think about what this tells you. The largest financial institutions on the planet are not waiting for retail investors to figure out the stablecoin settlement thesis. They are already positioned. Goldman Sachs does not allocate $154 million to an asset on a whim. Hidden Road does not get acquired for $1.25 billion unless the buyer sees a massive revenue opportunity in settlement infrastructure. Here is what this means for you specifically. When institutions are building positions at scale while the price sits around $2, they are telling you something about what the infrastructure is worth long before the market prices it in. The question is whether you position yourself alongside them or wait until the market catches up. Here is the timing element that makes everything converge. The FDIC stablecoin guidance is in its comment period right now, with finalization expected by the end of April 2026. The Clarity Act is expected to reach a Senate vote this quarter. If both of these catalysts land within weeks of each other, you have the most powerful regulatory convergence in XRP history. Federal stablecoin operational rules plus commodity classification equals unrestricted institutional adoption of XRP settlement rails. Do you think XRP breaks $10 in 2026? Comment yes or no below. I want to see the conviction level after looking at these numbers. There is one more data point that puts all of this in perspective, and most creators are overlooking it entirely. RLUSD has grown from $0 to $1.56 billion in market cap in less than a year. That growth trajectory puts it on pace to challenge Tether and USDC market share within 24 months. And here is the critical difference. RLUSD is already compliant with the framework the FDIC just proposed. It does not need to restructure or adapt. That first mover compliance advantage could be worth billions in captured market share as banks begin onboarding stablecoin infrastructure under the new rules. Here is what this means for you as a long-term XRP holder. Every dollar of RLUSD market cap growth increases demand for XRP as the bridge settlement currency. RLUSD is not competing with XRP. It is the demand engine that drives XRP utility. More RLUSD adoption means more XRP settlement volume, means more sustained demand pressure on a fixed token supply of 57 billion XRP. Let me bring this back to your 1000 XRP position and tell you exactly what the data shows. The FDIC just created a clear regulatory path for stablecoin adoption across nearly 5,000 US banks. RLUSD is positioned as the most compliant stablecoin in the market right now. 7 XRP ETFs are live. Goldman Sachs has disclosed 9-figure XRP holdings, and the Clarity Act is heading for a Senate vote this quarter. Remember what I told you at the beginning of this video. I said I would show you how FDIC stablecoin rules translate into XRP price scenarios for your 1,000 tokens. Here is the bottom line. Conservative at $5.26. Your 1,000 XRP is worth $5,260. Moderate at $21. Your 1,000 XRP hits $21,000. Bullish at $50 plus. Your 1,000 XRP crosses $50,000. Even the conservative scenario is more than a 2.5x return from where we are today. One concrete action step. If you believe in this thesis, the window to accumulate XRP under $5 is closing. As these regulatory catalysts finalize, dollar cost averaging remains the most disciplined approach while prices are still at these levels. This is not financial advice. This is what the regulatory timeline and institutional data are telling me. Subscribe and hit the notification bell because I am tracking every development in the FDIC stablecoin rollout and the Clarity Act vote count daily. Tomorrow, I have a video covering the second major catalyst that could accelerate XRP price even faster than the stablecoin rules, and you do not want to miss it. If this breakdown opened your eyes, share it with one XRP holder who needs to see these numbers. I will see you in the next one.